Despite appearances, I've not started demoing vintage fax machines, commercial telephones from the 80s, or 80s style doorstops. Well, maybe it could make a doorstop, but it's actually the Alesis HR-16 drum machine from 1988. And this is beloved by many people who have been charmed by the quality of its samples and its incredible flexibility for the time at least. We've got 2 stereo outputs, so 4 individual outs if you pan the sounds hard left and hard right. It's got 49 16-bit samples on board, and 16-bit was a vast improvement in quality over anything you could get back in 1988. Well, for this price at least. It was around £450 or $700, and I'll take a look at the hi-fi quality in a minute. But it was well within reach, or more within reach of some of us than things like a Linndrum, a TR-909, a TR-808 or a DMX. And it brought with it a load of innovative features for its time. We take a look at this. We've got 16 drum pads. These are velocity sensitive, something you didn't get on the 909 or the 808, for example. And as you can hear there, those drums are really quite realistic sounding. That crash was something I used all the time, actually. I had a sample of that in my S1000 that my mate gave me, and it cut through a mix much better than the 909 or the 808, and I think that's got something to do with the 16-bit quality of it. But yeah, you know, these are velocity sensitive. Another thing I'd like to do with this is use the toms and, well, a lot of the other sounds saturated. They can really take it. The toms are just giving a really nice little bounce to this 909 rhythm. Here I've got it in Logic, and I've just mapped all the sounds into the Logic sampler. And you can hear that they just sound nice, don't they? That's lovely. I think it's because it's quite a thin sound to start with. It doesn't get overpowered with a lot of saturation. It just adds a nice chunkiness to the sound. And it works with a lot of others. I mean, that's great. But yeah, I do find that the sounds do lend themselves to a nice bit of saturation and bit crushing. But this, a classic chunky house beat with the 909 and the HR-16. Toms and the crash, as I say, were my go-tos. We've got 100 patterns in here. They can be 682 beats long. Why the 682 is beyond me. We've got 100 songs in there as well, and we've got a resolution of up to 1/96th of a beat. So that's a quarter of a 16th, so really high resolution. Plus, if we look here, we've got this offset button, and that'll offset stuff by, I think it's 1/384th of a beat, which is MIDI resolution. So when I say it's sort of flexible and innovative, you can really get quite expressive stuff from it. Let's take a look at one of the factory presets. And because we can spread the samples across the different pads, you can have different tunings of the samples on different pads. There's a beat here, I think it's 28. You couldn't do that on anything else at the time, or at least not for £450. So it really is quite impressive for 1988. They sound like drummers. They sound pretty good, don't they? So why didn't it take off? Why isn't it a big classic like the 909 or the 808? And why have I described it as being a little bit shit? Firstly, with anything that's flexible with a simple interface, it can be really difficult to navigate. On this, it's not too bad, actually. We can change the voice. So there's the 49 voices. I've got samples of these at different bit rates and with some saturation on my Patreon if you're interested. We've got tuning. And as you heard a minute ago in that pattern, you can have different tunings on different keys. Then we go into the mix, we've got volume and we've got pan. And because we can hard pan to the left or right with the 4 outputs on the back, you've got 4 separate outputs if you want them. Tempo goes from 20 up to 255 beats a minute. And of course you can sync it with MIDI. There's all your sort of various settings you've got in there. What have we got? MIDI notes, so that you can send or receive MIDI notes, MIDI clock, auto start, click values, click on and off, everything you might expect in the utility. And then over on the left hand side, we go into pattern mode. We can quantize, so the quantize mode from a 16th. Let's go to, you probably can't see this, so that's quantize to at 1/64th to off, so you can have quantized off. But overall, I mean, that looks quite easy, but when you start to edit a beat, if we go into pattern and record, we go into step edit and we can step through the different beats. They probably can't see this on the camera with the lighting, but as we step through, in fact, let's try and zoom in. Come into pattern 3 then. This pattern's actually 32 beats long. If I want to edit it, so pattern, record, we can see we're on step 1, so that's beat 1, 0 out of 96. So 96 is the 96 sort of partitions within the beat itself. If we move forward, so we can see we've got the kick playing, we've got the crash playing, we've got a close tap playing, we've got a perk 4 playing, and this is all on 0, 0 of 96, so this is all right on the beat. And then we're a 16th in now, 24th out of 96. Nothing there, empty. The next, so this is the 8th, so the off beat, we've got a closed hat, and we've got nothing on the 3rd division, so the 3rd 16th. Then on the 2nd beat, we've got a snare, we've got a tom, got claps, we've got an open hat, we've got perk 3, that's a little wood block. And then on the 16th, after the first step, we've got nothing. So you can see how that works. So you can go in and you can edit stuff, you can add things, you can change anything on any of these steps and the intervals, which at the minute are set to 16ths. If we go into quantize, we can see it on 16ths. So come back into that. So if I wanted to change something in there, but I missed the tom, for example, I've got to go back to the start. You can't go backwards, so you'd have to come back into there. So you can imagine if you want to get all the way to something on step 28 of 32, there's a lot of pushing. And then if you get it wrong, you've got to start again. So I'm still trying to find step 28. So as I say, as far as an interface goes, yes, you can do lots with it, and you can adjust the volume on every step, and you can adjust the panning per program, and you can adjust the volume per program as well as on the step, and you can adjust the tuning per program, but you can't see the beat. I'm still after step 28, so do something to the kick on 28, so I've got to make sure I don't miss it. 24, 25, and there's not always the same amount of hits on each beat, remember, so it's just a pain. Here we go, there you go. Oh, well, there's no kick on it anyway, but hopefully that gives you the idea. So if I wanted to adjust the snare and I've missed the snare, I can't go back to it. I've got to do that and start again. So you have to scroll through every hit on every sound, on every division of every beat of your pattern, which means you could be scrolling through for hours and hours, which is probably why this button here has taken an absolute hammering. And I'm sure given time you get into your own rhythm of things and you'd learn how to use it and get over any obstacles and find your own way of doing stuff. But, you know, we've got computers these days to do that, which makes this a little less relevant. But one really nice thing it's got is this. As we open the lid, we get all the instructions. So it's essentially a manual printed on the machine itself, which is super handy. So there's the use of the instrument itself, but secondly is the sound quality. Keith Bart, the founder of Alesis, really did want to bring things to the masses, and he wanted to give high quality instruments to people that couldn't afford the Linndrum and the DMX and everything I mentioned earlier. But looking at this quote from Sound on Sound in January 1988, things have progressed a little from those 8-bit Linndrum days, passing through 12-bit standards on the way, and now reaching the ultimate level in consumer digital fidelity. Shows it actually goes against all the things we quite like these days. So it shows why it's not really become a classic in its own right. And listening to some of these kicks and snares again, we go down to the voice. This is the power kick, 22-inch power kick, swift kick, double HD kick A, double HD kick B, 60s kick, gated kick, an electronic kick 1, an electronic kick 2, and similarly with the snares, I'll just rock through them quickly. Horrible, isn't it? And again, that electronic snare, it just sounds a bit weird. If it didn't have that little pitch bend, it wouldn't be too bad, but it's just slightly off the mark. So everything sounds like real drums. That sounds good. That sounds to me like you're in your rehearsal room and in the studio where you're doing a sound check. The drums have been mic'd up and you're getting this a really decent sound from your drums. I mean, it doesn't sound like something like the Stephen Slate Blackbird pack. I think it's a Blackbird pack, is that what it's called? From the studio, and the kicks on that were just sublime. And I'd sat there for hours once, just gently hitting the kick, and you get the round robin samples in there and subtle variations in velocity. Just sounded absolutely marvellous. It doesn't do that, obviously, but it sounds like a basic mic'd up kit. But that's sort of the problem, because it sounds like the mic'd up kit doesn't sound like the record. So if you go to something like a Taylor Swift gig even, how much money's been spent on the drums, on the mics, on all the console, on everything, but it doesn't sound like the record. It sounds like a mic'd up drum kit. Sounds good, but it doesn't sound like the record. And for me, drum machines should make it easy to make things sound like a record. You shouldn't have to take what comes out of the drum machine and then process it with God knows how many bits of kit. So one track that does use this is Arrested Development, Mr. WENDAL. So I thought, well, can I copy the Mr. WENDAL drums using this? Because this is what they used. In orange, we've got the original track. Then we've got, in purple, we've got some hi-hats. And in blue, we've got the kick and the snare. Hi-hats are coming out of the left channel. Kick and snare are coming out of the right channel, just to split them up so I can mix them. And if we have a listen... Mr. WENDAL, yeah, Mr. I just can't get them to sound the same. I'm pretty sure they're the same samples that I've used, but it's difficult. And if you listen to the drums at the very start of the track, you can hear that they've been processed. There's like a gate on them, perhaps some compression. I've tried the gate, I've tried compression, I've tried EQ, but it doesn't sound exactly the same. So the only track where they're really prominent, I just can't produce it. Whereas something with a 909, I can really make it sound like a 909. And within seconds, I can almost get the 909 to sound like the track really easily. But this, again... In fact, if I play you the very intro bit, on the intro we've got just the drums. So you can hear there's something happening in there, and if I play sort of my version of it, it doesn't sound anything like it. And this is one with the full drums, and I put compression on it, but that's got the hi-hats in. Of course, I brought the hi-hats out, and that's why I split them up later on. But whatever I did, I just couldn't get them the same. So the drums, I think, because they do sound like drums that have been well mic'd and not the finished thing, they're almost a victim of their own success, because yes, they sound like a drummer live on stage. They sound like a drummer in your rehearsal studio. They sound like a drummer in your bedroom, mic'd up well, but they don't sound like a track. And that's where the HR-16B comes in. I've obviously got the grey 16. The 16B was black and it had different sounds in it, and those sounds were much more techno electronic-y. On this, I've got some samples playing. I'm just playing them via Logic. Little bit of a cheat just to make it feel like I'm actually playing it on a 16B. But yeah, oops, coming out via MIDI. And you can hear these are much more electronic. Pretty nice, that, isn't it? Trying to find like a house one, maybe. I don't know, what do you think? I mean, for me, the HR-16 was great in its day for being really complex and getting sort of quite nuanced performances out of it, but then you lose all that benefit once you stick electronic tones and it doesn't really make that much sense. But those electronic tones aren't the best electronic tones I've ever heard, which brings me to the reason for doing this video in the first place, and that's because I have these little Linndrum EPROMs for it. So one of the joys of this is that you can swap out the sounds and you can put new sounds in. So I got these on eBay and I'm assuming they've got all the Linndrum sounds in them. I'm not quite sure how many. It's got 15 it says on that and 16 on that, but maybe it's got 50 variants or 49 variants. I don't know. And these come with a new firmware. And as I say, I got them on eBay. They were £30, including the OS update. So yeah, doing this video because my next little venture into sort of technically pulling stuff apart will be changing the chips on this. So I want to do a little demo of this before I break it. There is a reasonably respectable chance that I could do something terrible and damage it. I shouldn't really. It should be quite easy as long as you get the chips the right way around. So yeah, this video really was just, here's the Alesis. It was a good machine in its day. It sort of missed the mark a little bit because of the sounds, I would say. But it's a decent enough machine. But let's see what it sounds like or how much fun it is, or if I can extend the life of it with Linndrum sounds, the 4 outputs, and just taking it into a completely new direction without binning it or putting it on a shelf or selling it. So that's going to be my next video. So if you've got any questions about that, do put them in the comments and I'll see what I can do to answer them when I'm doing the swap over. So yeah, don't want to be too harsh on the HR-16. I know people love this thing, but for me, I've got it and I want to make it better or make it more useful for me personally. Well, I hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere, and I really hope I haven't offended too many people by saying it is a bit shit, 'cause it is a bit shit. But if you did like it, do subscribe, ring the bell, join me over on Patreon. On Patreon, as I say, I've got all a load of these samples through different distortion units and the different bit rates and stuff like that. But as you know, this channel is funded by affiliate links, YouTube ads, and my wonderful patrons. So do take a look at that. And also do take a look at my starskycar.com website. Again, there's patches, there's samples, there's free stuff, there's stuff you can pay for, wavetables, patches, samples, stuff like that. So, as I say, hope you enjoyed that. I will see you next time, and I'm going to stand back and just take a bit of a duck and cover because I'll probably offended loads of people. But anyway, thanks for staying to the very end, and I will see you next time.